Unit 3, Lesson 2, Mr. Bowlby's 5th grade English class. Thank you very much. We are going to talk about poetry some more today, children. And the students, we have our poetry journal. It says Unit 3 on it. It looks very fancy. It's got a lot of cool pictures on it. We're going to open it up to page 12. But I wanted to point out some pages in the back that are blank. These are creative space pages. You have lots of them. This is for writing, not doodling. If you want to doodle, we have paper for you to doodle on. You can doodle little small things, but mostly it's creative space for writing. Now, I know that sometimes when you doodle, it helps to think about the writing process, so maybe it would be okay for a little bit of doodling. Anyway, though, we are going to be on page 12 in our journal, so get that ready. We are going to talk about tone, a writer's tone when they are writing. We're going to read two poems, one by William Carlos Williams and one by Kenneth Conch, and we're going to write in our poetry journal. So let's go ahead and begin with a few key words that we'll be using: beams, theme, variation, excerpt, and tone. Beams, just so you know, are those thick pieces of wood or steel, usually holding up a building or a porch or something like that. Theme is the main topic, the main point or topic. Variation is the different approach to the topic, a different variation of how you want to approach a topic. Some people might see Beauty and the Beast as a drama. Some people might see it as a musical. They take variations on their approach on writing the story around that. And then, of course, the excerpt, that word, excerpt, is a small part of a larger work. For example, one chapter or a novel or a verse, paragraph, or like a newspaper article, an excerpt from it, like a little piece of that. Tone is the attitude of a piece of writing, expressed through the style of writing and the words the author uses. So how I express myself in this poem, or how I am addressing the audience, the tone of voice. And you can hear the voice even when you're reading, if it's a well-written piece of work, which is what we're looking for. We're going to talk about sincerity and insincerity as we go. There is a picture. Set up here. So we'll focus on tone, that is writing and speaking, tone indicating the speaker's the mood of the speaker, and how they are explaining the speaker's meaning of the story. There is a picture. I don't want to install. Come on. No. Stop. Whoever reads the terms and agreements. Anyways. Okay. Sorry. So here is a picture of two. There's insincere and sincere. One of them is obviously sincerely either apologizing or agreeing to something, what have you. They're sincere versus insincere. This person is clearly insincere because they have their fingers behind their back, which means they are not telling the truth. They're not being sincere by what they are trying to say. We want you to be sincere. Yes, we do. So, in class, we'll have the students practice being sincere, speaking sincerely versus insincerely. When you're speaking with insincerity, a lot of times it's called sarcasm, which is to say the opposite of what one really means. Sarcasm is often used to make fun of something. It can often sound unkind. A lot of times it isn't intentional because the person using it doesn't necessarily realize it's being used as unkind, or you're just coming off that way and not trying to. That's when you start learning to forgive people. You have to read body language, facial expressions, tone of voice, all of those things, which is why it's so difficult to have conversations with people via text messaging or internet. That's why they created emoticons and smiley faces and non-smiley faces, so that you can express how you feel via pictures and visual, because words don't always have enough without more expression. So, we're going to read about a poet, William Carlos Williams. Williams was a doctor who lived in New Jersey. He wrote poems in his spare time, probably on his little scratch pad in between patients. And you wonder why it takes so long for the doctor to come in when you're in the checkup. It's because he's writing poetry in the hallway. You could just ask your doctor that next time, probably not. Anyway, he liked to write poems that expressed and reflected everyday life and the world. Poem in today's lesson has an everyday feel. In fact, it almost sounds kind of like a note that someone would write to somebody else. So listen to the poem as I read it aloud and think of the speaker's tone. This is just to say, I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox, and which you are probably saving for breakfast. See, forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet and so cold. Now remember, poems are written differently from prose. Poets organize their words in lines and stanzas, as you see. Reread the poem and kind of get an idea where you see the core vocabulary in there, more that we just see how the poet lines up their poem in 3 different stanzas to unfold a story that helps see how the story develops. See, stanza 1, what is happening in stanza 1? Let's see. I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox. So what's happening in stanza 1? The speaker ate fruit from the refrigerator. He's stating a fact about an action performed. I have eaten the plums that were in the refrigerator. Let's read stanza 2. And which you were probably saving for breakfast. See, he's evaluating. He's saying something to you. You as another person. He believes the other person planned on eating the plums for breakfast. So, there's a conflict. The speaker ate the food that the other person wanted. And I like how he describes the plums in the 3rd stanza. He says, forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet, and so cold. So he uses 3 different words, delicious, sweet, and cold, to describe the plums. It's good to use, it's interesting how that really, the connotation reveals the speaker's sentiments, how he feels. All right, this poem, he knew the plums belonged to somebody else, but he ate them anyway. Does the description of the plums make him sound sorry for what he did? Or do you think he's kind of just not really sorry? Sorry, not sorry, gonna. The speaker says, forgive me. But is the tone sincere or insincere? I'll let you think about that. Now, we're going to move on to the next poem from Variations on a Theme by William Carlos Williams. This is written by Kenneth Koch, based on the kind of variations of theme that William Carlos Williams writes. See here. I chopped down the house that you had been saving to live in next summer. I am sorry, but it was morning, and I had nothing to do. And its wooden beams were so inviting. Okay. So let's open up our journal to page 16, where it says, after listening to the excerpt from Variations on a Theme by William Carlos Williams, answer the following questions. What is the speaker apologizing for? He's apologizing for chopping down somebody's house. Sounds like probably a tree house, maybe, or a real house. I don't know how you would chop down a house without it being a tree house, maybe. Could see that. What is the reason the speaker gives for that? Well, I was bored. That's really? You were bored? Really? That's why you wanted to do that? Because you were bored? It's like, I had nothing to do and the beams were so inviting. But I had an axe, so I had to chop it down. He didn't really say he had an axe, but obviously he had to have something to chop it down. So it kind of infers that he had to have something. What is the tone the speaker has? Question 3. What tone does the speaker have, and what details in the poem help you recognize the tone? So look in the poem to support evidence for your answer of his tone. Use the poem. The beams were inviting, or just how he words his words in the poem to, when you answer the question, to show that you are listening and understanding. Okay. And the next question, number 4, in writing a poem inspired, this is just to say, Conch stresses or plays up the qualities of the original. How does this poem show exaggerated tone? Let you answer that on your own. We're going to go on to our next set of questions. All right, so we're going to do writing now. We're going to write our own poem. And you're going to fill out the questions 1 through 4 to help you create your sincere tone poem. And then you're going to write poem number 2 with a sarcastic tone. So basically, you're going to write something sincerely. And then you're going to write something sarcastic, like, really. If you want some hints, teachers around here could probably give you some. I'm sure I could probably think of a few. I can be sarcastic sometimes, but it's important to not be mean when you're sarcastic. Very important. So answer these questions. Think about something. Let me read this for you. In this lesson so far, you've read several poems that offer an apology for something the speaker may not really be sorry for doing. Think about your own example of something that would require an apology. This example may come from your life or your imagination. It does not have to be based on real life. Get creative if you need to. All right, number 1, think about something that might deserve an apology even if you didn't know it was wrong or hurtful at the time. This could be something you have done, such as Williams eating the plums, or something you have imagined, such as Conch chopping down a house. Write it down. Don't just brainstorm in your head. Write down your brainstorms. Think. Based on the action you use to answer question 1, answer question 2 to 4. If you're writing about something imagined, just answer as if you had actually performed the action in question 1. These planning questions will help you think more about the scenario you will use in your poem, which you will write in the next section. Number 2, to whom are you apologizing? Number 3, how might that person have been hurt or annoyed by your action? So who are you apologizing to, and how may have that hurt them? And then, number 4, why would you have performed this action? Think about the poems we just read. The plums were cold. They were so cold and delicious, yummy, whatever. The beams was so inviting. I had to chop down your house because the beam was inviting, right? It's never a good reason to chop down a house because the beams looked really inviting. I had to chop it down. It's like that money in the bank, right? Don't do it. It's against the law. It's illegal, remember? So we said that. So that's the sincere poem. If you complete question 4 and still have remaining time, look back over your answers for question 3 and 4. Add one more detail to each answer. Poem number 1, sincere tone. Now, with your answer to questions 1 through 4 in mind, write an apology poem of your own. In this poem, make your tone sincere. Make it clear that the speaker is really sorry for what he or she has done. You may use lines below, right here, to write your poem. You might think about your answers to questions above for inspiration, but you do not have to use the exact words as you did before. Your poem might include the following things: the action that deserves the apology, and why someone might be hurt by this action. All right. For whom is the apology intended? We're on page 20 now. For whom is the apology intended? What words or details in this poem show the speaker's sincerity? So you're going to fill that out, and then you're going to write your poem right here on these lines. Okay. And then you have poem number 2, sarcastic tone. Now it's time to try a different tone. Write another poem that apologizes for the exact same action, but use a sarcastic tone to show that the speaker may not really be sorry for his or her actions. Use the lines below to write your poem. You might think about your answers to the questions above for inspiration, but do not use the exact same words as you did before. In writing your poem, you might think about the following things: the action that deserves an apology, why someone might be hurt by the action, what enjoyment the speaker got out of the action, for whom the apology is intended. I want you to pay attention to what you're including in the sarcastic one versus the other. When you're sarcastic, you're usually saying how much you enjoyed doing it. That's the difference. Sincerity, when you're really sorry for something, doesn't show that I enjoyed doing it, kind of thing, right? So you're showing a sarcastic tone. Then you answer, for whom is the apology intended, and what words or details in this poem show the speaker's sincerity. Page 22, again, has your vocabulary and has a biography about William Carlos Williams, as well as Kenneth Conch, which you can read those at your leisure or whenever you have free time. So think about whom you're apologizing to, literally who you're apologizing to. Infer how that might have hurt or annoyed that person, and then evaluate why you performed the action. Because the beam looked really nice and I had to chop it down. Those berries, the plums, they looked delicious, so I had to eat them. Okay? So, basically, you're writing a sarcastic poem and you're writing a non-sarcastic poem, a sincere poem. And that is the end of this lesson. If you have any more questions, just ask me. Have a good day. See you in the next lesson.